Welcome to the Minnesota Rovers Tuesday evening presentation. Minnesota Rovers is an outdoors club based in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Our members organize trips that range from 1 hour to 2 weeks in Minnesota or further afield. Examples of our activities include hiking, biking, backpacking, skiing, snowshoeing, paddling, and rock climbing. We also organize conservation and trail clearing trips. Our members have experience and skills in many outdoor activities, so if you want to learn a new outdoor activity, we can probably help you. For more information, go to mnrovers.org. Now let's move on to this week's presentation.
Tonight, you're here to hear about Cycling Ireland's Boreens Little Roads from Julie and David. Julie and David met on a Rovers bike ride in 1999, married in 2003, and were recycling the world from 2009 to 2011. Please welcome tonight's speakers, Julie Retka and David Byrne.
Welcome to Cycling Ireland's Boreens with Julie Retka and David Byrne. Julie and I spent the month of May 2024 cycling the southern half of Ireland. Starting from Dublin, we biked to Counties Clare and Cork and Kerry in the southwest, then north to Counties Clare and Galway before heading back to Dublin. Starting out from Egan's guest house on day one, I pedaled away on the right side of the street. That is the wrong side of the street in Ireland. Julie is chatting with Elena, who is from Madrid, when we stopped for breakfast at the Lovin' Spoon, where we ate dinner the night before. Michael, the owner, took our photo to post on his Instagram page. The Parnell Monument on O'Connell Street. 49 years ago, I took this photo of a farmer driving a horse-drawn wagon here. Ireland was one of Europe's poorest countries in 1975. Now it's one of the wealthiest. It is a tough climb up the old military road, but it's one of the most traffic-free routes out of Dublin. The Killickey viewpoint at 1,250 feet overlooks the city of Dublin and Dublin Bay. We entered County Wicklow near the Glassamucky Mountain viewpoint overlooking the Bohernabrina Reservoir. The gorse is blooming amongst the heather. Glen Macness waterfall from above and from below. We stayed in this cozy pod at Glendalough Glamping in Lara. Patrick, the owner, built 12 of these pods and plans to build 3 more. He also took our photo to post on his Instagram page. Day 2, Glendalough means Valley of the Two Lakes. On the path along the upper lake, and the entrance to the monastery ruins founded by Saint Kevin in the 6th century. The round tower at Glendalough may have been used to hide during Viking raids. Here I'm going down to Glenmalure Valley. We climbed almost 6,000 feet on our 2 days cycling through the Wicklow Mountains. The Byrne Pub in Rathangan is for sale. My parents visited Rathangan in September 1984. Grandpa Mid renewed contact with his Irish relatives in the 1950s. His father was born here in 1857. In 1975, I biked to Rathangan, pictured here with distant cousins Carmel, Simon, and Mary at Glendalough. Mary, Carmel, and me 49 years later. In 1986, Mary and Carmel stayed with my family in Amory, Wisconsin, and also attended the Byrne family reunion in Bowman, North Dakota for Grandpa Mid's 90th. The Virgin Mary in Rathangan is stepping on a snake. There are no snakes in Ireland. Day 3, we started cycling in a mizzle today, a mist drizzle. Julie stopped to put on a rain jacket shortly after leaving Mary's house. And we took a break from the mizzle in the Water Lilies coffee shop in Tullow, County Carlow. A barista offered to take our photo. There's a bike lane along the N80, a national highway. We also biked on roads marked R and L. For much of the day, we cycled on narrow roads with no letters called Boreens. Some roads are so narrow that two cars would have difficulty getting past each other. Roads like this are almost like bike trails. The Leyland Bridge has been in use since 1320 in County Carlow. Our warm showers host, Connor McLeam, let us sleep in his attic. Warm Showers is a global community of cycle tourists. We host cyclists in our home and our guests in the homes of other cyclists when we are touring. Day 4, an unmarked, very old castle along a local road. We did not expect this road to lose its pavement when Google suggested this route. We eventually found pavement near this intersection. There's English bluebells along the road. And the sun finally came out when we arrived in Waterford and cycled on the Waterford Greenway Trail. Our Airbnb hosts Michael and Peg. We could understand Peg better than Michael, who mumbled. My mom thinks he just has a strong brogue, like her grandpa, who lived with her family. Tom and Jerry are outdoor cats at the Airbnb. Day 5, a full Irish breakfast includes 2 sausages, 2 rashers, Irish bacon, eggs, beans, tomatoes, and mushrooms. Every road crossing on the Waterford Greenway has gates to slow down cyclists before they cross a road. Walk your bike through the Ballyvoyle Tunnel. Our first view of the sea as we neared Dungarvan. Lots of families are on the Greenway on this sunny Sunday. We ate fresh bread and yesterday's cheese on the harbor of Dungarvan, founded by the Vikings around the year 900. Meeting cyclists Owen, Killian, and Owen was the highlight of our day. They are cycling from Kilkenny to Cork in 3 days. Killian knows a couple of lads named David Byrne. Next, we met Thomas from France, who will cycle for 2 months in Ireland. After we leapfrogged the Irish lads, Thomas continued on with them. Sunlight at dusk on Drury Lane. Free Wi-Fi, good beer at Wallace Bar and Undertakers. At Canty's Pub, we listened to Ben Hurley sing American songs. Country Roads, Breakfast at Tiffany's. When Julie sat at an empty table in Canty's and told Bridget we were cycling around Ireland, Bridget asked Julie her age. Bridget is 63. Her partner Fred Murphy also has a speech impediment. A lot of men around here seem to have speech impediments. Day 6, colorful houses in Hilly Cove, a harbor city near Cork. Julie's brakes screeched as she cycled down a steep hill in Cove. Fame came to Ballinspittle in 1985 when 2 women vowed they saw the Virgin in this grotto move and wave her hands. Thousands of pilgrims came and hundreds also claimed to see the Virgin move. The Timoleague Friary Ruins. Our Warm Showers hosts in Clonakilty are Justin, Ari, and Allison. We did laundry and slept in a shed in the yard of our Warm Showers hosts on day 7, our rest day.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for being here. This is day 8. We stopped in Spiller's Lane to get groceries for camping on Cape Clear Island tonight. And we ate scones, one of our favorite mid-morning snacks in Ireland.
fresh from the oven with butter, jam, and clotted cream. Dromberg is a recumbent stone circle built around 1100 to 800 BCE in the late Bronze Age. So we're primarily following the Atlantic Way, and you see the signs above in blue with the white zigzag line. That's for cars, and we followed that sometimes, but the Eurovelo route #1 directed us on, which is below those signs, with the bicycle there, that directed us on to less traveled roads. So Google Maps was great help in helping us find small roads, but sometimes it led us a little bit astray. Here is a gravel road with a wire stretched across, which you cannot see, that David almost hit, but avoided. And so that was good. We missed the 2 p.m. ferry to Cape Clear Island, so we had 3.5 hours to eat and relax. And we also toured the 800-year-old Baltimore Castle in the background. Jesse and Nancy also missed that ferry, so we met them, and they're also from the United States, from Ohio and Texas, and they are going to be staying in a yurt next to ours on Cape Clear Island tonight. The 45-minute ferry to Cape Clear Island cost 20 euros each, about $20 at the time. That's round trip, plus 2 euros for a bike, for a total of $51, about 51 euros. Cape Clear Island is a Gaeltacht island where Irish Gaelic is spoken. That's the name for where Gaelic is spoken, Gaeltacht. We walked our bikes up this very steep grade, 20% from the harbor. Our yurt is made in Mongolia. Finbar, the owner of Clare Haven Glamping, where we stayed, said it takes him a day to set up and take down each yurt. And he does this every spring and fall. Each yurt weighs about a ton and will fit in his small van. This is our beautiful view of South Bay in the southernmost point of Ireland. In the yurt, there's a small wood stove, as well as a regular gas stove and an oven. Panoramic view from our deck. Day 9. I'm talking and visiting with our neighbor Julian from France. I'm not in Spain. Okay. We did a 1-hour tour of Cape Clear Island in a van. John Collins does a tour for 5 euros per person. We went with our new friends, Jesse and Nancy. We saw many, many signs all throughout our trip supporting Palestine in Ireland. Day 10. David loves eating at the outdoor bar near our glamping pod, watching the cows gambol across the Illan River. And if you can see them if you look carefully. First thing today, we have to see if we can get our bikes fixed in Skibbereen. Dick Roycroft spent 3 hours diagnosing the problems with our bikes. He needed to change David's cable, and he needed to fix my brakes, which he said he couldn't do, unfortunately. Most of these 3 hours he was talking, and after the first 90 minutes, he made us tea. He smiled often, laughed a lot, and told us many tales about his friends. I learned about the gift of gab from Dick Roycroft, and he definitely had it. David's derailleur cable frayed inside the shifter. And while he was fixing David's bike, I happened to find the very pads that I needed for my brake so that they would stop squealing, that Dick didn't have any idea about because they had been bought by a young employee who was away now working at the Herald d'Italia, which was happening at this time. Dick, who is 76, took over Roycroft Cycles from his father, but his son will probably not follow his footsteps because he has a good job in Dublin. Skibbereen was one of the worst hit parts of Ireland in the potato famine of the 1840s. The site of burial pits and mass graves of the Great Famine from 1845 to 1850. We started biking this day after 2 p.m. on a road so little used that grass grew in the middle. A short section of this route is also a hiking trail. The altar wedge tomb dates back to the late Stone Age, 3,000 to 2,000 years BCE, which was just right there along our little road we were traveling. We stayed in a bell tent you can see in the background at the Goleen Harbor Eco Resort. The tent is very roomy, but comes with no extras. We supply the tent, you bring the rest, is the advertisement. They also have some very nice eco-domes. We bought takeout fish and chips that we ate a couple of doors down, which you can see in the Wild West bar, along with a pint of Beamish for David and a pint of Guinness for me. Day 11. We had coffee overlooking Goleen Harbor where we had seen the basking sharks the night before. Morning view of the eco-domes across Goleen. We cycled without panniers to Mizzen Head. Julie and David at Mizzen Head. We then biked on a less traveled road to Three Castles Head, and you can see that in the distance there. The road along Bay to Crookhaven. Along the Bay to Crookhaven. We shared a table at O'Sullivan's with twins, Mari and Joe, who are actually staying in the Eco-Dome next to us that had cycled a shorter route than we did today. O'Sullivan's Bar is the most southerly pint in Ireland. The Sheep's Head Inn in Durris is a 200-year-old pub that features music and craic, which means fun, that closed 15 years ago. The new owner, Tony, lives in the pub and rents out the upstairs rooms on Airbnb, which we had pizza and beer next door to our Airbnb at O'Sullivan's Bar. Irish pubs serve drafts in a glass with the name of the beer that's in it. Why don't we do that? Many pubs also post their prices near the entrance, which is another good idea. Day 12. This photo captures the entire village of Durris, where we stayed the night before. So on this day, David made a rash decision to cycle a longer loop on the Sheep's Head Peninsula after seeing this topo map. He thought that we could save time by crossing over the peninsula at Letter West, which he's showing you, on the left, instead of Kilcrohane on the right, because the pass is shorter, 465 feet high versus 600 feet. And those of you who know David know how sometimes what he's hoping for turns out to be a lot longer. So here we are on the very steep climb up from Letter West with the Mizzen Head Peninsula visible across Dunmanus Bay. And that's where we were yesterday. From the north side of the Sheep's Head Peninsula, we can see the Barra Peninsula across Bantry Bay, where we'll stay tonight. And that, of course, was one of my favorite things, when you can see where you were and see where you're going. That was pretty wonderful. But as soon as we headed east along the peninsula, another steep climb appeared before us. And, of course, this was only the first of many. So the trip ended up being 8 miles longer and 150 feet more of total elevation gain. Demonstrating that this was by no means a quicker route. But it is a paved road and you can see grass growing in the middle. This road is also a hiking route on the Goath Path or Sheep's Head Way. Taking that longer route meant we ate lunch at our halfway point in Bantry Bay after 2 p.m. instead of 12:30. We cycled faster for the last 30 miles of a 66-mile day on the N71 and the R572, which is pictured here. And of course, there was that steep climb. We arrived at the Seabreeze Airbnb at 6:15, having made up for lost time from David's rash decision from this morning. Palm trees grow here. And there were no empty tables at Murphy's restaurant, but a local fisherman let us share a big table with his family. Day 13. It rained more than an inch during our 2 days in Castletownbere. We could have biked in the rain, but we chose not to. The rain cleared enough in the afternoon, though, for us to bike. The Daring Taggart Stone Circle here is on a lonely road near Castletownbere. It is one of over 100 stone circles in Ireland, which are about 3,000 years old. The route Google Maps chose for us today goes up Bear Bridle Path. And are we on the next day, David?
Yes, this is it.
This is the next day. Okay, after the rain. We pushed our bikes up a 35% grade for a quarter mile and reached an elevation of 1,000 feet. We explored the ruins of Dunboy Castle, the main stronghold of the O'Sullivan Bears who ruled the Beara Peninsula. It was destroyed by the British in June 1602 after the Battle of Kinsale in December 1601, which ended in a crushing defeat for the Irish Gaelic lords and their Spanish allies. My mom is a Sullivan. That's my heritage is a Sullivan, and I'm standing in the largest room remaining in the ruins. And I'd like to think that after all these years, maybe this somehow there's a little bit of DNA attached to me somewhere from this ruin. O'Sullivan Dental Care in Castletownbere at dusk. Day 14. This is the next day. We spent much of our rest day in this lounge in the Sea Breeze B&B. Murphy's restaurant, where we ate before, was full on both Sunday and Tuesday.
Day 15. We climbed up from Castletownbere in the rain. A farmer stopped us and said, "I've got an animal on the road. Can you wait here 5 minutes for me to get her? So you don't scare her off. She won't come back down the road if you continue." 20 minutes later, he corralled her and apologized for delaying us. "This was the highlight of our day," I replied. No other traffic passed during this roundup. Julie chatted with a French couple in an RV at the Malls Gap viewpoint. We are approaching our bed and breakfast in Black Valley. It was one of the last places in Ireland to be connected to the national power grid in 1977. Day 16, the Shamrock Farmhouse B&B is a working farm that's been in the family for 4 generations. Patrick gives jaunting rides in the nearby Gap of Dunlow. We started the day by following a stream down to the Loch Lean Lakes. We crossed this bridge to enter Killarney National Park, where we cycled and walked on a 4-kilometer stretch of the Kerry Way, past big old mossy trees and the Troke waterfall. Jaunting cars for hire. Ross Castle in Killarney is an Irish tower house built by the O'Donohues in the mid-1400s. A cutaway model of Ross Castle. The 45-minute tour was fascinating and cost only €4 for seniors. And then we biked alongside jaunting cars. Day 17. O'Sullivans are everywhere around Fieries in County Kerry. the old Mullaheath burial grounds between Ferries in Kiltalloch, County Kerry, where Julie's ancestors came from. The Shanty Bar is at a crossroads near Kiltalloch Church. Here we're climbing up from the coast on the Dingle Peninsula, and this is Dingle Harbour at dusk. The Dingle Pub is a good spot for trad music. Day 18, our first stop on the Slayhead Loop was the Ringfort Ferry Fort, where Julie held a baby lamb. These ferry forts survived for eons because the Irish people are superstitious about disturbing sites like this, which were believed to be imbued with Druids' magic. I took photos of jackdaws going after our sheep feed. They are one of 6 types of crows in Ireland. Burn means raven. Julie standing in a beehive hut, built like an igloo. These beehive huts are plentiful on the edge of the Dingle Peninsula, the westernmost point in Europe. A traffic jam at the tip of Slayhead. As of June 1st, this road will be one way, going clockwise. And this is Slayhead. Luckily, the sun came out for a few minutes to take this photo. The Gallerus Oratory dates to the 7th or 8th century. An oratory is a small chapel. An ogham stone, which is an early form of writing in Ireland. Cathair Deargain Ringfort. And the Norman church of Kilmalcadar dates to the 1100s. Day 19, we began our day climbing Connor Pass, the highest pass in Ireland, at 1,500 feet. Here's the view of Dingle from an elevation of 100 meters. At an elevation of 250 meters, Julie was 12 minutes behind me, 2/3 of the way up, and complained of feeling sluggish. She wondered if the ferries did something to slow her bike down. Take a look at her rear wheel. The ferries let some air out of her tire. I pumped it up and again 3 hours later. At the end of the day, I pulled a thorn out of her tire. Julie and David on top of Connor Pass, where we had this view of Brandon Mountain, the 2nd highest in Ireland. We ended our day cycling on the Kingdom of Kerry Greenway from Tralee to Fennet. St. Brendan the Navigator was born in Fennet in 484 AD and may have sailed to Newfoundland 500 years before the Vikings. Someone did not want this mermaid to be topless. Day 20, the ruins of the Ardfert Cathedral from the 12th to the 15th century. A fog from the sea stayed with us all morning and gradually lifted here at the beach of Ballyhaig. The Ratu Round Tower is near Ballyduff in County Kerry. Along a quiet back road, we encountered small-scale turf harvesting, peat moss, which is used for heating. I thought it was against EU regulations to harvest turf, I said to 3 men leaning against their shovels. If you don't tell the EU, then we won't tell anyone that you're cheating on cycling around Ireland by taking the ferry, one of them replied. And we rode the Shannon Breeze car ferry for 4 kilometers across the mouth of the Shannon, an estuary. We are spending the night in a floating glamping pod in the Kilrush Marina. Day 21, St. Martin's Well, a roadside shrine in County Clare near the Shannon estuary. Buttercups blooming along a paved road with grass growing in the middle. We typically ate a picnic lunch of bread and cheese here at the Kilkee Cliffs. The Kilkee Cliffs rise 300 feet above the Atlantic Ocean. We cycled a boreen like this in order to avoid busy highways, which eventually became this overgrown, but only for a couple hundred meters. Main Street in Ennistimon at dusk. We ate dinner at the Burn Restaurant, Cafe, and Wine Bar, overlooking the Ennistymon Cascades.
Day 22. This is the Great Hunger Memorial in Ennistymon. The Irish population quadrupled in the 60 years before the potato famine, primarily because the potato was able to feed large families living on a small parcel of rocky land. Ireland grew from 2 million to 8 million and then dropped to 4 million by 1900. Over 1 million people died in the famine and 2 to 3 million left in Ireland. We walked for 8 miles along the cliffs of Moher, which are 650 feet high. The trail was lined with flagstones, which are actually exported from here. The visitor center claimed that puffins are nesting on the grassy slopes this time of year. We didn't see any. Starting from the trailhead at Haig's Head, there are no warnings about climbing over the flagstones, but the warnings appeared as we got closer to the visitor center. A picture of the Cliffs of Insanity scene from The Princess Bride that were filmed right here in the Cliffs of Moher. On day 23. This day we climbed over 3,000 feet on this loop through the Boreens. Rock scribing 3 horses. This appeared on Google Maps, but there was no sign or public access. So David scrambled up this thorny cliff to take the photo next to an electric fence. Pulnabron Dolmen is older than Egypt's pyramids. The Burren is in limestone karst country. And if you remember karst, you can find that in southeastern Minnesota around Lanesboro. The views towards Ballyvaughan on Galway Bay. You can see the 12 bends in Connemara, which are across Galway Bay as I'm cycling toward Blackhead. After eating leftover pizza at our Airbnb, we went out to Pot Duggan's and we listened to Peter Doran, an alternative singer-songwriter from Westmeath. Day 24. Cycling downhill to Dublin to catch the 10 a.m. ferry to Inisheer, which you can see on the left, Inisheer Island, the smallest of the Aran Islands. Picnic near the Seer colony on Inisheer, looking towards Inishmaan on our last sunny day in Ireland. And if you look closely, you might be able to see those seal out there. Plenty of rock walls here on this land, just like on Burren. A lot of tourists rent bikes on this island to go up steep hills, but be careful going down. We ate an early dinner after the day trippers left and had great views to ourselves in the evening light, and we hiked 6 miles to this 1960 shipwreck with the Cliffs of Moher visible away across that's 6 miles away across Galway Bay. We enjoyed pints of harp and smittix at sunset, and then we went inside O'Flaherty's to listen to traditional Irish music. Day 25. We stayed at the South Aran House. Rick Steves described our hosts as humorous Enda and friendly Maria Connolly that are generous with local tips about the island. The 11th century St. Kevin's Church on Inisheer. And if you remember earlier, we talked about St. Kevin in Glenloch, who founded the Glendalough Monastery. And this is his brother, St. Kevin, all the way up here in Inisheer. We spent 4 days in the crowded Tynet.
Hours.
Oh, 4. Sorry.
Seemed like 4 days.
Well, no, it was actually 4 hours in the crowded Tynet pub while it was raining. And there were 2 stag parties near us, bachelor parties. So no one's outside in the rain having lunch on the Aran Islands ferry to Rossaville. This is not a car ferry. The Hooker Bar is just 130 meters from our Airbnb. And at the same Hooker Bar, we ate this wonderful local smoked salmon on brown bread, where they were also burning turf in the fireplace, one of our first places where we saw this. Day 26, we're staying on one of the many islands and peninsulas of Connemara in County Galway. David walked on this wet and spongy ground here to take this photo of freshly cut turf. There were no livestock anywhere on any of this peatland. A view of the mountains across Loch Inagh. The Killary Harbor is Ireland's only fjord, which of course led to the sea. We had few pictures of the scenery along here because we were through these very scenic valleys, because it was raining off and on all day, unfortunately, but beautiful nonetheless. Day 27. In most of Ireland, the signs are in Gaelic and in English, but in this area, it was only in Gaelic. I'm sitting with Oscar Wilde in Galway, which has some car-free streets downtown. The Crane Bar has live music away from the prime tourist area, but we were too tired to stay up until 9:30. We stayed at the Solemn Weir Hostel in Galway, the only hostel that we stayed at in Ireland. Ulton, the manager, did our laundry for free. Day 28. We left finally the Wild Atlantic Way and headed inland, heading east, where it rained off and on all day. David had his first flat tire while we were, very fortunately, while we were taking a coffee break in Athenry. This house is the Woodland House. It showed up to us on Google Maps, and we decided we would look for it and take a lunch break there. There didn't seem to be any access to it, but a local farmer talked to us and told us the gates we'd have to go through to get there. But he told us about a video camera and a loudspeaker that would tell us to leave the premises. Well, and the warning was incredibly loud, so we left immediately. But we had our lunch looking at this mansion. That's something like Downton Abbey. It is for sale, along with 1,000 acres of land. So after lunch, we continued on through 6 unlocked gates. But at the very last gate, on our way out, it was locked. I told David we should go back the way we came. We're not going to be able to fit our bikes through this. But David thought, well, we could squeeze through and we can fit our panniers through. But we'll find another way for our bikes. And so a little ways away from this, we had to lift our bikes over a 6-foot stone wall, which we did. The Mihambi Dolmen is a megalithic portal tomb. Cycling the back roads took us to places with few tourists. And this is David in 1975, at age 18, on the Brownshill Dolmen near Carlow, which may be the heaviest in Europe. Sean's Bar in Athlone is the oldest pub in Ireland and maybe the oldest pub in Europe and perhaps the world. It dates to around 900 AD, and it's likely appeared because whiskey was distilled first here in Ireland nearby. After eating a nice meal next door at the Riverview Bistro, we listened to live music at Sean's and mingled with an international crowd. day 29. We checked out of the artsy Bastion B&B. Vinny of the Bastion B&B also runs the Bastion Gallery next door. I'm playing with poetry along the old rail trail, which runs 43 kilometers from Athlone in the geographical center of Ireland to Mullingar, heading towards Dublin. This will be part of the proposed Dublin to Galway cycleway. In Mullingar, the old rail trail seamlessly connects with the Royal Canal Greenway, which takes us all the way to Dublin, traffic-free. And a lot of it is finished. Some of it was a little difficult on our bikes, but we did it. We had a picnic lunch at lock number 25. Several canal boats are docked at Nanny Quinn's Bar Restaurant.
Day 30, our last day. For our final short ride into Dublin, we continue to follow the Royal Canal Greenway. Many sections after Maynooth are not yet paved. These bronze shoes were made from a child's shoes found in the attic of an old house, possibly dating to the potato famine. After boxing the bikes, which took an hour per bike, we ate and socialized at the Gravediggers pub near Glasnevin Cemetery, which is close to Egan's guest house. We enjoyed a wide-ranging, in-depth conversation at the Gravediggers pub with Ben Maloney. Ben lives in London and is a chief of staff for British politicians. Ben bought a round of Guinness for us on our last night in Ireland. Michael is the co-owner of the Love and Spoon Cafe. Our server, Elena from Madrid, remembered my name when we returned here after a month. I like to feel like a regular at a place where everybody knows my name. We spent only 2 nights in Dublin and ate 4 meals at the Love and Spoon. EU elections are on June 7th. We've seen many political posters along the roads, most featuring a portrait of the candidate. I've been a wild rover for many's the year, and I've spent all me money on whiskey and beer. We spent an hour in the Aer Lingus check-in line on this June bank holiday weekend. Luckily, we arrived at the airport 4 hours before our flight departed. Each bike box weighed under 50 pounds, and all 4 of our panniers fit in one extra-large duffel bag that weighed 26 kilograms, 58 pounds. So that's it. Are there any questions?
Tina was wondering how many miles or hours per day did you average, and how did you train for this adventure?
Well, first of all, training. We go on the Monday and Thursday night bike rides, which, though not very long, if you do them consistently, you can get in shape. On this trip,
And I have to say about training, just my own little something, because I did those night bike rides, but I didn't, evening bike rides, but I didn't do a lot. I didn't do the training I needed to, which would have been up and down hills somewhere in southern Minnesota or in Wisconsin. And I wasn't ready for those hills in Ireland to start. But by the 4th day or 5th day, certainly by the 2nd week, you're in shape. And you can't help but get in shape. So that's pretty much how I trained.
And we cycled an average of 40 miles a day, about 65 kilometers. And I wrote some statistics down here, expecting questions from the rovers. So in case anybody wants to know, we paid an average of $100 a night for lodging. Eating out costs about the same as here, say $50 for dinner and another $25 for breakfast, lunch, and snacks, for total expenses of about $175 a day.
So Jen is wondering if you got any discounts from businesses that were named Burn.
Oh, good question.
I did not, but it's wonderful to be in a place where people don't have to ask how I spell my name. And I will say that there are a lot of people like Julie and I touring Ireland who have Irish ancestry, and we all want to find out about our relatives. And the Irish are pretty good about it, even though we outnumber them. There are like 30 million Americans that claim Irish ancestry, and there's only 6 million people in Ireland. So they're used to American tourists looking for relatives, and they're pretty helpful about guiding you to the right family or farm or whatever.
So, did you make hotel reservations for each night before you left, or did you make them as you went along?
Well, we like to travel without reservations, but we did before we left get the first and last night at the guest house in Dublin and found a guest house that would be willing to store our bike boxes for the month. I think the first Monday or the first weekend we were there was a Monday bank holiday that I didn't know about because we don't have them. So we got to a tourist town and there weren't any lodgings available, but I checked ahead of time on Airbnb and we were able to, we had good luck with Airbnb because with bikes, we could get to places, outside of the main tourist areas. Like that first place with Michael and Peg. They were in a rural area near the bike trail, which was great for us, but they were rarely booked. As far as how far in advance, that day we got our bikes fixed in Skibbereen, we didn't know when we'd leave or if we'd have to spend another night. So at 2 p.m. when we left, I got my Airbnb reservations. And I didn't realize that Airbnb gives the host 24 hours to respond. So here we are 4 hours later. We hadn't heard from him yet. And we don't know if we should go on to the next town, not knowing if we had a place to stay. And luckily at the last minute, they responded. But that's when I decided we should try and get our reservations more than 4 hours in advance. So generally a day or two in advance. And if we knew, for example, when we were taking the ferry to and from the Aran Islands, well, then we knew we needed a place when we got off the ferry, which was several days in the future. So, we like to, be flexible. So if it was raining and we want to spend a couple more days in one place, we could. And it worked out pretty good with, like I said, with Airbnb as a backup.
And one thing, we went in May, and that's not the heavily tourist season. If you went in June and especially July or August, you probably would not find anything open. So that's important to know that September, later October, it's better. I mean, not later October, but later September. Those are better times to travel in Ireland. If you're going to travel like we do. The other thing is we tried to stay with warm showers hosts, which David talked about in the presentation. We tried to stay with them a little bit. And those places you needed really to look at a couple of days, more than a few days ahead of time, just because they needed to get back to you. And so we only, I think, stayed with 2 warm showers or 3 warm showers people, something like that, because we didn't know ahead of time enough to be able to stay with some of the other people who just weren't there. They weren't around or whatever. So.
Thank you. So I think you kind of answered this, but did you bring your bikes or did you rent?
Good question.
We brought our bikes, and I didn't talk much about the hassle with Julie's brakes. We put the bikes together in the airport and pedaled from the airport, but one of Julie's brakes didn't work, and so we had to get that fixed right away, and luckily we did.
Well, I wouldn't say it was right away. It was, my brakes were incredibly screechy, and I really only had one brake for a while going down those very steep hills into those cities. So it was a little, anyway, but we did get it fixed. That was, Dick in Skibbereen fixed our bikes, and it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
So what was the name of the beautiful pink blooming shrubs near the shoreline? This was maybe in the first half of the presentation.
Yeah.
I did have the names of those. Well, what's the name? Oh, it's in my notes.
I don't remember that one.
Well, there was a lot of not bougainvillea. What was
Oh,
it? Rhododendrons.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah.
were almost
That was-
they were invasive, and
Yeah.
because all those English, well,
Yeah.
I blame a lot of things on the English, and I have to stop doing that. But anyway, there were a lot of people from England that came to Ireland to run the land and things like that because of the history of Ireland, and they brought all these. They brought the rhododendrons, but I'm sure the Irish also planted it. I shouldn't blame the English, but I do.
Oh, so Gifford is wondering, he says he avoids cycling with traffic. How bad was it on this trip?
Yeah, we loved finding the Boreens to get off the busy roads. And one strategy was if we were on a road that was too busy, we'd pull off onto a side road, a Boreen, and let Google reroute us on the back roads. And that worked wonders. Going in and out of Galway was not pleasant. And we could have taken a much more roundabout way. As it was, there was one road along the coast, and the alternative went almost twice as far going away from the coast. That was in the peatlands area. Julie and I, are experienced riding on busy roads, so we put up with it. But it wasn't any fun, with no shoulders and pulling off into driveways whenever traffic was getting backed up behind us.
And the thing that I felt is that I know that just like here in the States, people get annoyed by having to wait behind us, but they did wait behind us. If there wasn't, the rule or the law was they needed to pass 4 meters, 3 meters. They needed to give us a lot of space in order to pass. And of course, that wasn't always possible on those busy roads. And they waited behind us, but they may not have given us 4 meters, but almost always I had 2 meters. The only person that didn't give me 2 meters turned out to be an American, and she apologized. She stopped and apologized to me, and that was not on a busy road. But anyway, that, I felt it helps to know where you are and how people's attitudes, how bikers are treated. And I felt like in Ireland, I know that people might have been annoyed, but they treated us okay. They treated us very well.
Tim was wondering if you downloaded Google ahead of time or if you had Signal.
Yeah, we had a Signal the whole time. I can't think of any time we didn't. And that worked great. And that's also what I use for planning, bike rides here in the Twin Cities. Google, I'm surprised sometimes Google knows about a bike route that I didn't know about. So, with Google, you can set, you're going from point A to point B via bicycle, and it'll route you on roads that other cyclists have taken.
Well, I think those were the two. Did you always stay indoors or did you camp?
Oh, that's another question I anticipated. We carried a hammock in case we couldn't find lodging, but never used it. We did use our sleeping bag when staying with Warm Showers hosts and when we rented a tent at Goleen Harbor Eco Resort. So that was a question before we left. We didn't know if we'd be able to find lodging every night, but as it turned out, we could. So in the busy season, things will be more booked.
Yeah.
But I have to say for cycling too, May and September, the shoulder months are also the best weather for cycling. So, but in Ireland, that means, for example, in May, it rains less than half the days because it rains a lot in Ireland. And for us, even the days it did rain, it was on again, off again. We'd be, stopping to put on our rain gear, taking it off, put it on. And I think the wettest we got was, a downpour that might have lasted an hour. But also it doesn't get that cold in Ireland. Or at least in May, the temperatures were pretty consistent. I'd say in the 50s and 60s most of the time. I also wanted to say I brought a sweater that's like the tightest weave that I have. It's a sweater that's almost like a jacket. It'll repel water, and that was something I glad I took, because I was concerned about getting cold and wet, and thought, I'll throw in this one heavy sweater, and that one heavy sweater worked wonders in Ireland, which I'm sure you could also buy there if you don't think to bring it.
Can you talk about the style of bikes you used?
You want to talk about recumbents?
Well, we've been on the cruise bike. It is the brand recumbents now since 2011. So it's been many years, and we've had a couple of different versions of the cruise bike, and we like it. It's a nice bike. It's a comfortable bike after you get used to it. It's a little tricky to learn to ride, but once you've ridden it for miles, it's really a comfortable bike. I like it because it's a little bit higher than regular recumbent bikes, so you're not so down low, and so it's nice as you get older, which David and I are getting older. It's nice. It's easier on the wrists, easier on the neck, because you're not bending. You're not whatever, and you can really view the area a little bit better than when you're on a regular bike. But I've ridden when we did our trip around the world, I was on a regular bike for most of that trip, and I loved it. So I did not want to go to the recumbent bike, but I did, and I've never gone back to that the regular bike. Do you want to say any more, David?
Yeah. Well, the other thing I like about recumbent bikes is for carrying panniers, you can carry the weight low and centered where the pedals would be on a regular bike, and that adds to the stability. I like carrying the load low and centered.
Are your bikes e-bikes?
They are not e-bikes, but it would be easy to convert them because it's a front wheel drive. So we get a rear hub, an electric hub for the rear wheel. And actually Cruise Bike used to sell a model just like that. And I don't know why they discontinued it, but that is possible as we get older, if we're not able to bike as much as we currently do. E-bikes are the way to go. I would have to say, though, for doing a tour like this in Ireland, we took, I think, 5 ferries, and several of the ferries you would not be allowed to bring an e-bike with you. And it doesn't seem fair. Somebody can get on a ferry with an EV car, but e-bikes, it's been in the news that they've exploded, the batteries exploded or whatever. Some of these ferries have a rule, no e-bikes allowed. So you'd have to take a different route that avoided ferries.
That's all the questions are in the chat. Does anybody else have anything that they want to ask while we have David and Julie here?
Yeah, hi, this is Jane. I have a question.
Sure, Jane.
David,
Hi, Jane.
I followed your blog when you rode around the world in 2009 and 11, and you did a lot of bike maintenance, changed a lot of flat tires and whatnot. And you only mentioned that, once, changing a flat as well as stopping at the bike store. Granted, you were only gone a month versus 2 years, but was there more maintenance that didn't get mentioned?
Not with flat tires. I think it was just the 2 flat tires, the one that Julie had climbing Connor Pass and the one I got while we were stopped at a coffee shop. But that issue with Julie's brakes, that was frustrating, partly because she has hydraulic disc brakes that I'm not familiar with. And I had tried to adjust them, but later found out you can't really adjust hydraulic disc brakes, and that was frustrating. So, but we took it to the shop, and the guy in Dublin, I think, probably didn't get all the hydraulic fluid off the rotor, and that's what caused the squeaking that, a week later we had to deal with. Yeah, that was frustrating.
But it's amazing, bikes. Yeah, it's amazing that a bike does do pretty well when you're traveling. It doesn't have a lot of maintenance if you've been taking care of it, I suppose. But also there are bike shops, in most places around the world. So
and that gave us the opportunity to meet Dick Roycroft, who is a real character.
But I would recommend, if you're going to do a world trip, don't get hydraulic brakes. Get regular brakes, because those are harder to fix, I found. Much harder.
How much did it cost to transport your bikes over to Ireland?
That's a good question.
Yes. That was another question I anticipated. So we paid $600 each round trip for a nonstop flight on Aer Lingus from MSP to Dublin. It cost us $100 per bike going and $80 per bike returning, for a total of $1,600 for both of us. It was frustrating because on the website it said they only charged 60 euros to transport a bike. We got to the airport and they said, "Oh, those bikes are oversized. We got to charge extra." And it's like, any bike in a bike box would be oversized by their standards. So, why they would say bikes you're only $60 with, only really a folding bike would fit that definition of not being oversized. But anyway, it ended up being more expensive than we thought, but it's cheaper than it used to be. 15 years ago when we biked in Europe, it was so expensive, like $300 a bike.
It was round trip $300 to take your bike on an airport. So the airplane.
And so that time we looked at renting, but being gone for a month, it would have been as much as buying a bike. So we ended up buying cheap mountain bikes to bike on the St. James Way, the pilgrimage route across Spain. And that worked out much cheaper than renting because we were gone a month. So
and we sold them at the end for, so we sold them for not much more than we paid for them. But not much less than we paid for them.
But I'd say it's worth the hassle just to have the bikes we're familiar with. And I got better at putting it in the bike box, and it worked out.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Julie and David. That was a wonderful presentation and really educational.
Thanks for watching this Minnesota Rovers presentation. If you want to see more, please click on the link to our channel or the subscribe button below. Thank you.